Hey dudes, welcome to Ask Tommy number 12. First question: is there a movie you won't talk about on your podcast? Well, I've said this before, but Cannibal Holocaust, there's just a huge stigma attached to it. Also Clown House is another, probably those two. You know, I used to like those movies until I found out the truth, behind the curtain, so to speak, and it just makes me really uncomfortable. Not to mention that this is online, and online is a scary fucking place. It really is. Have you had any weird incidents happen to you lately with your podcast that threw you for a loop? Yes, actually. Back in late May, some weird dude that I blocked years ago, that was a Facebook friend and a subscriber of my YouTube channel, he trolled me, and it was with my interview that I did with Nicole Eggert. And I had, made this kind of, snarky joke comment about Scott Baio during it. And this guy, who I had blocked, I don't know, he made another account and listened to that interview because I blocked him from my channel. He listened to the interview and he had heard the joke, and he like made a threat to me saying that I was slandering him and that he was going to send it to him and shit, right? And I was so fucking spooked. I mean, literally terrified that I edited the comment out. It was just a joke, really, but it wasn't meant to be slanderous or anything. I mean, I went on Scott Baio's like YouTube channel, and I see that he has a podcast and he does fourth wall videos, and I gotta tell you, that guy is so fucking scary at this point in time. He's playing for keeps, and he's living in Trump's world. And so there's no way I want to fucking become famous because of that fucker. Both of them, all three of these guys, so that really threw me for a loop. What's the first thing you do after an interview? Well, it depends. It depends on my energy. Post interview, I'll go drink water, grab a can of bubbly in the kitchen, grab some lunch, begin uploading the interview before editing, make an unrecorded phone call of somebody that I'm going to have potentially on, and go run errands with my mom. Boring stuff like that. There's nothing really fun or significant, super significant that I do after an interview. My energy is just usually drained, and sometimes I have to wait a half hour to do a second interview or something, which is very rare nowadays. I try to schedule all my interviews, one a day, but then sometimes during the holiday seasons like now, two a day. I try not to do three, but if I really have to do three, I'll do it. But I try not to. What was the craziest turn down for a podcast interview you got this year in 2025? Oh God, this summer I finally got in touch with a character actor that I had always wanted to talk to. And well, I found out I really fucking don't. First he ghosted me, and then he writes to me, "What's the competition of coming on your podcast?" I'm like, "Competition? What the fuck does that mean?" There's no contest to coming on my podcast. So, like, why would you ask that, sir? And he replies me back, "Oh, I'm sorry. I meant compensation. Compensation." I replied him back saying, "I don't pay guests. Never have, never will. I'm an industry professional of over 2,400 interviews. Our mutual friends can all vouch for me. This is going to be the best interview of your life." He replies me back, nevertheless, and saying, "Nevertheless, I won't do it unless you fork over cash." So it's not going to happen. Fuck that rat bastard, which is a pun on a movie that he's actually known for. Do you consider yourself a spontaneous person? I can be. My mom raised me to be a pre planner, you know, for which I am for my podcast because you have to be. I have like a 12-month list of people I reach out to January to December. That's how I pre plan the podcast each year. And I do a lot of research that I pre plan. But yes, I could be a spontaneous person. If someone says, let's go to lunch or dinner, I'm down to go, even if I'm busy. But I never turn down a good meal. That's a Tommy policy that I have. If someone says, "Hey, you want to do this interview now?" and if it's somebody who's been rescheduling for months and I have the research already done, sure, I'll do it. But if it's somebody who just thinks I can go right into an interview without preparation, think again. I got to do it, tomorrow or next week or whenever. I just can't go into an interview half-assed. I did a little bit in the beginning because I was experimental and I was doing my surfer dude persona, but since then I've done a lot more research, a lot more, and I'm pretty proud of it. And I also discriminate too. If I see a lot of research on the person's, IMDb or Wikipedia, it's like, okay, I can't talk about all this stuff. I don't want to do super long interviews anymore unless the conversation is going really, really well. I don't want to take the initiative to do a long interview with somebody anymore. So I just, pre-plan the stuff that I need to, and I'm much better off that way. What's a skill or talent you wish you had? I wish I could sing or play instruments. My dad and my nephew, they have those skills in those departments. I don't. I played a little drums in high school, or not high school, junior high actually, and I sang karaoke for 10 years. I can't sing worth a shit, but I love making people uncomfortable. So yeah, definitely a musical talent I would love to do. I mean, comedy. I mean, I did it for 10 years. I think I had an okay comedy sense. I definitely have a good sense of humor, and I am funny. Just I wish I could have been funnier as well. So maybe a better sense of comedy and definitely a musical talent would be the talents that I wish I had. What's one thing you can't live without that isn't a person? Well, these are kind of person related, but actually not a person. More like person adjacent movies and masturbation, and not necessarily in that order. Movies are my reason for being, masturbation is the void I fill in for not having that special person in my life. During my single periods, which in the last 10 years have been pretty frequent. It's been a long one. Life is full of surprises, though, and I would like to fall in love with the right person and not have that anymore. But to answer your question, it would definitely be movies and masturbation. That would be something that I can't live without. That isn't a person, but person adjacent. Are you good at admitting that you're wrong? I am a lot more now than I was, say, 10 years ago. I take much more accountability now than I did then, especially when I know I'm wrong. I feel sad when somebody hasn't let go of something I did years ago, regardless if I've apologized or not. And I will apologize if I feel like I need to. If someone is a total dick to me and after I stood up to them, I never apologize for that because it could have been avoided. I don't suffer fools gladly, especially narcissistic ones who think that they're the queen shits. In my mind, they're just weaklings who are just, empty, bankrupt people. And they need to be humbled sometimes. And they think they're humbling me, but that's only because they are sick, and it's just really, really sad. So I will not apologize to a narcissist, never will, and never have. Who's your favorite hot mom in film and in television? Oh, so many. Cassie Yates in the Disney TV movie Ask Max. Oh, I wish I could interview her. She's not available in terms of contact info, unfortunately. Um, who else? Jennifer Jason Lee in Skipped Parts. Oh my God, she was a hottie in that one. Lee Taylor Young, who I just had on, she was a hot mom in Slackers. Hell, she was a hot mom in Secret Admirer. And even though it's two different characters, I wouldn't mind her either way, especially Slackers, for obvious reasons. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Shirley Jones on the Partridge Family. She was a cutie patootie and still is. So many I'm blanking on, but that's essentially who my favorites are. in terms of MILFs, hot moms. What topic would you like to explore on Splat but haven't yet? I think I've gotten this question before, but it's bukkake. Hopefully next year I will finally explore it. I always forget to write that down. I gotta explore bukkake and find a bukkake expert somehow. I know they exist. I know they're out there, but who the fuck knows if I am able to find one. And when I do, oh man, it is going to be friggin' awesome. And it's going to be a very big splat, if you pardon the pun there. And we shall see. Mark Malkoff has a book out about Johnny Carson. Are you going to have him on again to talk about it? Listen, I like Mark. I'm impressed by his knowledge of late night television. I feel like he's very qualified to be the guy who preserves the legacy of late night, especially Johnny. But I don't think we gelled together well in our interview back in 2022. And especially after the interview, I sent him guests to finish off his Carson podcast because he didn't know who the last guests were going to be. And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way because he didn't reach out to any of them. I was really disappointed, especially for Stephanie Hodge, because Stephanie Hodge has nothing but a great experience, had nothing but a great experience to talk about. Her Johnny Carson experience, whereas so many female comedians disliked Johnny and said that he was a misogynist and whatever. And so I was really upset that Stephanie didn't get reached out to by Mark. At the same time, Stephanie is very blunt and she swears a lot. I'm sure Mark was aware that she probably would have swore on his family friendly podcast, but you know, that's what happened. And I'm sure because Mark was not on YouTube at the time, like his new show is now, Inside Late Night, which I recommend. It's just as good as the Carson podcast. I'm sure that Mark just felt, and I don't mean this in a demeaning way, he probably felt that, getting help from a YouTube podcaster was a little below him, unless it's, the Letterman guys or the SNL guys that he's really cool with, that he does podcasts with, you know. And also, too, Mark is very diplomatic about Johnny, whereas I'm more street smart about Johnny, and that's okay. I mean, like I said, he's a fantastic interviewer and he's doing very well preserving oral history about Johnny's legacy and whole late night in general. But like just the whole thing of the whole, trying to get him a guest, for his remaining episodes and him not reaching out to them, it kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I'll buy a copy of his book and read it, but we don't need to have another conversation. Look, he did an awesome job being interviewed on Media Path this month with Fritz and Wheezy, who have both been on my show. I love those two. Man, I wish they'd have me on, but I guess my journey is just not amazing to some people. So many people have come on here and said, do my podcast, and then they never mean it. But that's a whole nother conversation. What is your favorite TV show theme? My top three. The Laverne and Shirley theme. We're going to do it our way, just our way. The Fall Guy. The Greatest American Hero theme. Those are my three favorite. I used to sing all of those in karaoke. Those were my jams. Also, for honorable mention, the Webster theme. I know it's really, really cheesy, but I loved it. Who's your favorite Little Rascal? Spanky. I know. It's a cheap shot, but it's true. Did you have any high hopes for specific guests this year, but then disappointment prevented them from coming on? Oh, fuck yeah. This past spring, I tried to get Paul McCartney's stepmom and stepsister to come on here. They have a podcast on YouTube called T-Flicks. I used to watch it until this incident happened. So I DM'd their fan page and heard back from their assistant. I can't remember her name offhand. And she was like, "Oh, hello, Tommy. I'm their assistant, whatever her name was. And I think they would be delighted to speak with you. You have been on such an amazing journey, and they love talking to amazing people." That response made me feel great. And unfortunately, that wasn't sustained because a half hour later, after I had sent further information, my guest list, whatever, I went from feeling great to feel total, utter chaos shit. I mean, it just was not a good feeling when I got this reply back from that same person. This is what she said. The reply was, "Sorry, but your podcast branding isn't suited enough to sell their tea. Good luck to you, and thanks for your interest." What the fuck, dude? She made me feel good about myself 1 minute, and then the next minute made me feel like utter shit. I don't fucking want to talk about tea. I mean, yeah, we'll plug it, but I want to talk about Paul and their podcast. And I just think they're so funny together and so hilarious. It would have been a great fucking conversation if they had come on. And I'm sure they don't even fucking know that I messaged them. I'm sure they're complete ignorant to me messaging them. I did send one of them a message long before I had sent the fan page message. Maybe I will try both of them again, but I am just so upset that it happened. I can give less than a shit about tea. I just want to talk about Paul and I want to talk about their podcast because they're just so good together. But that really, really just, that threw me a loop too. I mean, it just pissed me off. Do you prefer belly buttons over breasts? No, no, not at all. They are equal, coexistent. They are knobs to my heart and my sexual appetite. Are you a confrontational or non confrontational person? I'm a lot more non confrontational now than I was, say, like 12 or 15 years ago. When I was younger, it was much worse, but I've learned to be a battle picker, and just, and think, wait a minute, do I really want to waste my energy on this and invest time in it? It is just not worth it. It's just chicken shit compared to, whatever I was feeling previously. And I just don't need to devote my time or energy like this. Negativity, it really does make you old and tired. It really does. I'm so glad I've cut out so much negativity out of my life in the last 5 years. Once the pandemic hit and I just learned to, you know, live life and just take it easy and just count my blessings and matured, I have just been so much better off, you know. I mean, if someone's rude to me, I'll be confrontational, especially on this podcast, but I try to stay classy. What type of social media posts annoy you the most? Anything political, no wonder it's called an echo chamber. It really is. I wish more people called out assholes in the convention world than, anything political. I rather respond to those posts than the political shit because political shit's the elephant in the room, it's pretty obvious. Everyone's talking politics these days on social media, and I just wish people didn't because, I've said it before and I'll say it again. People need to become like the people of Springfield in that Simpsons Halloween episode when the billboards are attacking the town and Paul Anka comes to save the day with the song, "Just don't look, just don't look, just don't look." That's what we need. Everyone just stop paying attention to politics and pay attention to entertainment and fun stuff and only worry about what's going on in your life when something really, really happens bad. Not saying don't ignore the problems of the world. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just like stop being negative. It makes you tired and old, and just don't look and don't give them the satisfaction because that's what they want. You know, think happy thoughts for a change. Cary Grant, Jimmy Stewart, or John Wayne. Who do you think you could have had a great interview with? Jimmy Stewart by far. He's my favorite. old Hollywood movie icon. I mean, I didn't agree with him politically, but he was just a great guy that I could see from everything that he did, and so damn funny, especially in his later years when he became a personality, doing like appearances on variety shows and stuff. Cary Grant, who was a crush, but I don't know if I could have had a fun interview with him. Maybe I could have. Who knows? John Wayne, he was the Duke. Maybe I could have gotten along with him, but the jury's still out on that. So definitely Jimmy Stewart. He was my favorite of all those old Hollywood guys. Is there a secret silly game question you want to ask but you're too afraid? Oh, yes. I would love to ask an actress if she ever got camel toe in an acting role and the director yelled cut and said, okay, put on a new pair of pants. But I think that question would be too long. Ever thought about having legends like George Slaughter, Ruta Lee, or George Chakiris on? I would, however, I can't stand any of their publicists. They are just odd guys, and for whatever reasons, they don't like me. And I'd rather pass. I don't want to even, send them DMs and then have them say, "Oh, go reach out to this or that publicist." I just don't want to deal with the negativity of that. And quite frankly, these guys can't stand the fact that I am onto them. If you could hang out with any movie cast, what movie cast would that be? Wow, that is a great question. It would definitely be the cast of Mischief because by far, I've had Doug McKeon, Chris Nash, Catherine Mary Stewart on here. Kelly Preston, I never got to meet, but they obviously adored each other on screen. There's that famous picture of them, and they got Kathy in their arms, and they're just looking like they're having a fun goof around, doing a publicity shot of them, which I've seen Kathy have that 8x10 at her desk when she's doing conventions. I think definitely I would love to hang out with that cast. I'm sure I would have loved Kelly Preston. I wouldn't mind hanging out with them. They're all great people. Um, Maybe some of the horror movies, but then again, I've met a lot of cast members of certain horror movies, and I know that I actually like their characters a little bit better than them. I mean, there's some notable exceptions, but for the most part, I wouldn't mind talking to anybody from Mischief and hanging out with them in real life. Is there a new reason why certain people don't like you as a podcaster? Yeah, in fact, this has been eating at me for the last month or so, and I think this would be a great opportunity to get this out now. There's a rumor going around that I'm AI, which is fucking absurd because, yeah, I don't do Zoom podcasts visually on YouTube, but I've been a guest on other people's Zoom podcasts. So you can go on there and find out that I'm real. I'm not fucking AI. I'm not just the voice, okay? And I'm always asking new questions. Sometimes I repeat stuff, of course, but I'm not fucking AI. And I'm so offended and creeped out at the same time because I hope nobody out there is making AI videos of me because I'll be fucking pissed if they do. But yeah, I think that's why I'm ghosted a lot and stuff. And I think that's why a lot of people are reluctant because they listen to the show and they go, wait a minute, this guy's got to be AI. There is no fucking way that he's real. So, yep, I think people think I'm AI, and that's a new reason not to like me. And I'm not, obviously. And there's pictures of me at conventions on my social media as well. You could tell I'm a real person. All the pictures are the same. I'm the gap tooth guy. Sometimes I'm skinny, sometimes I'm overweight, but I am a real person. What do you think of the Nasty Neil and Stuttering John feud going on? Oh my god. Fucking, I don't know if this is a real feud or not, or just an Andy Kaufman esque hoax. Either way, it's fucking dumb. I mean, Neil is just making himself out to be a moron, being even associated with this guy because uh, it's hard for me to say it. Like, you know, I'm very critical of Neil in a lot of ways, especially since he's become a Zoom podcaster. I think he did his best interviews when he was audio only, like a lot of people do, But I just think that he's starting to over promote himself and you know, um, be exactly what he is, the pioneer of horror podcasting, but getting mixed in with Stuttering John is just completely unnecessary, and I can't believe that he's even engaged in a feud, whether it's a hoax or not, or just real. I mean, if he keeps giving this guy second chances and it's a real hoax, he's a freaking moron for doing that. But I hope to God that he's not, you know, mixed in a real feud. I hope it's a hoax. And finally, why haven't you done a 40th anniversary interview for The Return of the Living Dead? Well, it's not for a lack of trying. I tried to get Dinah Cancer on here, the lead singer of 45 Grave, who did It's Party Time for the movie. I met her years ago at Son of Monster Palooza and got a picture with her, but she's not on Facebook often, and it's very hard to pin her down. I've also DM'd Drew Deegan. I messaged him years ago, and he's never read my messages. I DM'd Beverly Randolph on Instagram, despite the fact I didn't want her on for the longest time because of her feud with Jewel Shepard. And since I'm kind of pissed at Jewel, I wouldn't mind having Beverly on just to see what my talk with her would be like. So, and then there's people that I've talked to, from the movie, like Linnea, Tom McGill, John Philbin, Alan Troutman, Bill Stout, Russo and Striner. There's people that I've already talked to, but yes, I would like to get somebody new, whether it's Dinah or Beverly or Drew. And, I want to find out more about that lawsuit that they're in, that intellectual property lawsuit, which is just damn mind blowing. I was like, damn, when I first heard about that a year ago or so, I was like, damn. Well, that's it. Later, dudes. Happy Thanksgiving. Gobble, 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 gobble.